Well, this week is Gas Week, and experts and industry players alike have gathered in Johannesburg to discuss and explore the regulations and opportunities on the African continent. Joining us now to discuss the gas market opportunities further is Daryl Hunt. He's director at Dynamic Energy Consultants. Daryl, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. So we've been taking a closer look at gas exploration and production in Africa, in South Africa specifically. How supportive is government and the regulatory environment for development of this space in your books?
Well, from a market perspective, there's been a very significant development in December. The Minister of Energy issued a Section 34 determination for new gas-fired power generation, and this certainly has to be a stimulus to unlock some of the reserves that we have in South Africa and Southern Africa.
What are we looking at? What are our gas supply options, and what are the potential energy gaps you see the supply managing to fill or close?
Okay, the supply options are obviously always indigenous gas, what's conventional indigenous gas, which would be like the Ebobesi gas fields off the west coast of South Africa. It could include shale gas, which is quite controversial at this point in time. It could also include the import of gas from our neighbours in Mozambique or Namibia, and then of course the import via liquefied natural gas.
It could.
Correct.
Do we have concrete enough of a plan to actually get things going in order to reach maximum potential?
The truth be said, probably not. We need to have a gas master plan put in place because gas infrastructure is expensive. One LNG import facility would cost about $1 billion. A 600-kilometer gas pipeline would cost the same amount. And if we don't have certainty about where the markets are, we won't know what gas infrastructure to put in place. And all the infrastructure is doing is tying the resources with the market opportunity, which is in its essence gas-fired power generation.
You say that we need a gas master plan. We do have an integrated resource plan for 2010 to 2013 though. So, I mean, what purpose does that for? Because it's pointless having plan after plan after plan being tabled.
Well, the resource plan is a legal document. It's the only basis upon which NERSA can license a generator, and that plan has insufficient gas megawatts in it to justify the infrastructure we're talking about. It's very heavily slanted towards renewables and nuclear as we go for the low carbon future. And I think what I would argue is we perhaps need to rethink and recalibrate our nuclear aspiration so that we can have a larger component of gas-fired power generation, which will then be the stimulus to unlock this infrastructure development and the gas upstream positions.
What are some of the challenges in actually getting that right? Because obviously, you've highlighted that these are the concerns and these are the pitfalls or the off the plan, so to speak.
Yes.
Where are the challenges to actually getting this on the right track?
Fortunately, I think the plan is not cast in stone, and that was said by the government when it was promulgated in 2011. So a review of that plan is due, I think, during the third or fourth quarter of this year. And I'm sure this debate is going to come up. In fact, the National Planning Commission, or through the National Development Plan, even calls for a Plan B to reconsider the extent of our nuclear aspiration. And I think it's during the updated IRP planning process, which is due later this year, that these issues need to be addressed. But indeed, we need to move out of planning phase and into implementation.
Let's take a look at political will. Is there enough of a political will to back this up? What's your assessment of that?
Very good question. We've seen a lot of political will for the renewable program, very strong renewable policy. We've seen the same for nuclear. We haven't seen that same commitment to gas. But having said that, it's probably because we haven't been blessed with abundant resources. And the assumption probably has always been, well, where is the gas? And I think that question no longer has to be asked because, as I said earlier, we have now a whole portfolio of supply opportunities open to us.
It's one thing having, political will. It's another thing having this plan tabled on paper and written down, but theoretically speaking, practically speaking, how viable are these plans down the line? Because one assumes that the demands, for example, of a skills base is very high in order to effectively get things like this off the ground.
Again, the renewable program gives a very good precedent for that, where you see this policy commitment which translates into the regulatory framework and then starts with the procurement process. We've just recently announced 49 billion rand worth of renewable energy projects, I think, and more are due to come. And of course, the skills required to do that, both in terms of contractual and financial before you get onto site. And then once you're on site, the engineering and the technical skills will have to be developed. We don't have them, but it's going to have to be developed.
Are you looking at things more so from a glass half empty or glass half full perspective as we move forward?
For gas, half full. Absolutely. Because of the ministerial determination that we saw in December, you can see there's a commitment and a realization to gas-fired power generation opportunities. I just think we need a little bit more to give it real economic and commercial impetus.